Okay, hey everybody, this is Grace, and I'm sitting out here before it turns dark. It's 7:56 p.m. and it's going to turn dark soon. So I'm going to make a few videos about yesterday. I saw my my experience yesterday seeing the cardiologist, and basically he wants to run some more tests and see if it's going to result in some surgery, basically to get a stent or more put in. When the results all said so mild. So I'm not sure about all this. I'm just going to say that I'm not sure about any of it. He said it's a friend of his and friend and colleague that would be doing all that. You know, after they, I guess, running the test and the surgery. I don't know. But he's a young guy, and I have a rare health condition, and it requires, my experience over all these years, it requires somebody who's been around long enough to know that it's true and it exists and knows about it. Has studied it, heard of it, heard from others that they know what this is. It's starting to rain again. It's rained most of the day, but a big chunk of it. But anyway, there was all of that, and but some of the things, some stuff has been bothering me with this, okay? But besides the stuff I've complained about, like they never have enough time, and I'm not just talking about him, but it seems like the ones that I wind up seeing, they're in too much of a hurry to explain things. Like one of them told me I was anemic, and he said, "That's weird." I said, "Nobody's ever told me that." He said, "It's weird because you've been anemic for a while, several months." Like that. Well, he didn't even explain it. He's my PCP. And what should I watch for? What should I do? All this kind of stuff. Oh my goodness. You know, it's like, come on. You know, is this your job? Okay, isn't it? But anyway, stuff like that. They never have enough time. They have so many packed into one hour. You know. But anyway, that's not what's bothering me. It's a couple of things other that kind of outside of that kind of thing is bothering me, really. But one of them, I don't know. Let me think. Okay, one of them, I don't know how to think about that one. It's I don't know how to think about it, because I've always, my degrees are in psychology and sociology. I only mention that whenever I mention it, it's just to show that I have some, I can back up my words, because I was a career student over 20 years, and I have that education that what I say is not just me guessing. It's not just me just BSing. I have experience with all that education. I could be wrong, of course, anybody could be wrong. But it's really highly doubtful with that much education. And I taught at college and university. That's why I'm saying that. There's this research that showed that men are expected to give their qualifications, but if a woman does, she's thought of as a braggart. Yeah, that she brags. She's bragging. No, they need to know our qualifications too. And it's not bragging, it's stating fact. What needs to be backed up. Because anybody could say whatever they wanted to, and they're not, no. They don't have that education needed, so, and experience. But anyway. Okay, when I say something like this, and I mean it, ever since I was a kid, so I didn't have the education then, but I do go back now and say, since I was a kid, I had this ability to basically understand, to look at somebody and say, that's not a good person, or that is a good person. And like, a kid in school, I grew up in a townish, not small townish, not too small, but it's basically one of those places where everybody knows everybody, or at least they know somebody who knows somebody that knows that person, or their family, something like that. So you can find somebody that's going to know them somehow, some way, in that town. And so as we got older, we went to school, the same schools and stuff like that. And yeah, I remember seeing as time went by, I was right. And I say, once I get educated and I learned how to do these things, how to, like I said, my degrees are in psychology and sociology. So, I learned, career student, over 20 years. And so I usually don't have problems when I get a feeling about somebody, when I'm thinking, like I first meet them or something odd happens. If it's not my first time to meet them, but they say something odd or say, something curious. And I have a pretty good idea. But there was somebody in this mix. I'm still going, I don't know how to take it. It was at that doctor's office. I don't know how to take it. And I don't want to really focus, and that's unusual for me. What I'm saying is it's very unusual for me. I mean, rare. I think I've only had that happen once in my lifetime. I'm 61. And this was one of them, and then I just accidentally ran across the person again. I'm like, was it an accident? I mean, it wasn't me it wasn't me. I was just happened to be there. And I'm like, okay. So I don't know. And plus, some things that person had said don't mesh right with what this doctor says. Okay. But anyway, yeah, it doesn't all mesh right. So, it's got me kind of feeling a little bit creeped out about it all. And I trust my gut. And it's not my gut, I understand the expression, but it's all this education and all the experiences my whole life. I know that one of the reasons I really do feel this way is that I had this ability when I was young was because my mother's, and I'm not saying all mothers who do this have this problem, but my mother suffered from postpartum depression after she had me. And I had to learn, basically, she didn't want to take care of me. She wanted nothing to do with me. Absolutely nothing. And it was between, I think, her mother and my dad, who they were still married and still living. They always lived together until he passed away. And but she wanted nothing to do with me, so I had to learn how to pay attention. I had to learn my analytical skills very early in life, and how to get the attention I needed to things like to be fed, to be diapered, because she wanted nothing to do, and her mother wasn't going to be there all day. My dad worked, so you see, so when her mother was there, I had to get attention, get it fast. You have to watch people, know when to coo, know when to cry, know when to do whatever, earlier in life. And, you can go past past infant, being an infant and go on. I had to learn a lot of things that other ones didn't. So, but anyway, why did I go this far? But yeah, I'm kind of disturbed about all of this. They want to run some more tests, and they want, of course, run the major ones that cost the most money. I'm very cynical with this because I've seen too much. Not just with this office, too much. In this area, way too much. I'm not saying everybody, I'm saying, but what I've seen, quite a bit of it, most of it, almost 100% of it, yeah. I've seen too much. About money, money, money. It's all about the Benjamins. Makes a person very cynical. Me, a person who's like, but nope. Anyway, and then the other thing is that he's very young, my cardiologist, and twice now, the things he says don't add up. I mean, literally don't add up. Like, if he says, I want to see you in 2 months, okay, that means that he should have an appointment, open for 2 months from then. Yesterday, 2 months. Okay, that would be, May is one of the months. June is in the second month, so it would be after June. It would start July. He doesn't have any appointments until the end of August. And there was one, I think, or something like close to the end of August, something. And then the women that were there, some kind of stuff going between them. I said, well, that doesn't make any sense, because he said he needed to see me in 2 months. And then one of them came. She texted one of them. Another one came in there, and they were kind of like rude. And one of them said, well, you can see his nurse. I said, well, but does the doctor want me to see his nurse? He said he wanted to see me. He wants to see me. So, would it be okay with him? I don't know what he would be okay with. And then one of them said, well, he's been telling all of his patients that he wasn't going to be back until sometime after August. He wasn't going to be around for a while. I'm like, what the crap? So they scheduled my appointment for August. I have a feeling when August comes around that day, they're going to call me and say, oh, he's not going to be back for another month or two. What, And this is the second time something like this has happened. The first one is he wanted me to start a medication after I did some blood tests. Well, he already did some blood. Well, I already had some blood tests. They wanted me to wait and have those blood tests and then start a medication. But he wrote, according to his staff, on his notes from the first and only visit, for me to continue taking that medication. Why would he write that on his first notes, medical records, for me to continue taking the medication that he was going to write me, and I'd never taken before ever in my lifetime, and he knew that, and he told me to wait until I had those blood tests 2 weeks from then. Really? And he scheduled the appointment for me to see him, but I don't think he told his staff, and something got mixed up in it, and I was going to be needing for 2 weeks, about 2 weeks of medication just to cover those 2 weeks before I saw him in person. It was unbelievable to try to get that prescription for just the 2 weeks. They did it for 2 months, finally. But it was like pulling teeth, and it was like a big old drama. I had to call a triage nurse outside of it that isn't in this area. And then it was the second one, apparently called and told him, this is going to stop. Because she even told me, she says, I've been reading the back and forth between you and them, his staff. And then the next thing I know, and she didn't really elaborate too much after that, but the next thing I know, they finally got straightened out. So, and that could be why those other 2 women were being rude to me, is because they know I'm going to call the triage nurse. And I am. I'm not dealing with this kind of office politics that they got going on. And they want to be rude, and they don't want to, play games and stuff like that. I've seen that before, not dealing with it. No way. So I'm feeling, and the one that first one I saw, I sat there in the waiting room the first time I was in for an appointment. I was in the waiting room, and I was listening to the women working there. Never met them before, didn't know anybody there. And they were calling patients and saying that the doctor that they were going to see, she was not going to be in. She decided to take a day off, and they needed to reschedule. I'm thinking, do they realize people plan these things? They plan their schedules quite often around these things. And just to call and say you have to reschedule for another day, it's quite, frustrating can be. But what they would say is sound like as though they were superior. All the while I'm thinking, that is so wrong. And I had doctors and nurse practitioners that did it to me too, within this system, and I'm like, does this happen often? The last time somebody did that, I said, does this happen often? No, ma'am. No, ma'am. So are you sure? Because I had dealt with that. You know, all of a sudden they give you a call, you have that appointment scheduled. They say, oh, well, you're going to need to reschedule it. But anyway, that office that did that, I was sitting there listening to them calling patients and the way they were talking to the patients and everything. I was like, oh, wow, this is not what I want to be mixed in. It continued from there. And I'm like, no, the way the doctor, the cardiologist was behaved, his office manager, the way she behaved, I'm like, I don't want anything to do with this place. So, you know, so that's why I got this other one, and that was through the hospital, a reference through the hospital. And of course, the person the hospital guy wanted me to see, he didn't have any openings, so I had to go with this one. Yeah, from now, I mean, I wouldn't know that I didn't know that I could have waited. They didn't even say that, but I should have. If I could have, yeah. Because I don't know about this one. The whole of it is so kind of just weird. You know, and I mean, like I say, my whole experiences in my life, this has got to be one of the weirdest. Really. You know, things not adding up, literally, figuratively, whatever, just kind of bouncing, and oh, you know, there's so much more to it. And I'm just kind of worried I'm running out of options, and, you know, I'm glad that it is somebody else that's going to be taking that from here. And maybe he's just the one I report to. I don't understand how that works either. But anyway, I think that's enough. I didn't even have this plugged in, so but it's not going to run down that fast. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. Talk to you on another video. Bye.